We express our full support and solidarity with the people and government of Venezuela, and we continue to closely cooperate and coordinate further steps with Caracas to prevent interference in the country's internal affairs.
The Trump administration is on the offensive against drug cartels and drug trafficking into the United States. President Trump has been very clear he is going to use the full power of America and the full might of the United States to take on and eradicate these drug cartels, no matter where they're operating from and no matter how long they've been able to act with impunity. President Trump has also made very clear he's not going to allow the United States to continue to be flooded with cocaine and fentanyl and other drugs coming from different places, including Venezuela, which is a common route. We are going to put an end to the drug cartels that are flooding American streets with their product and killing Americans. The United States has designated Tren de Aragua and Cartel de Los Salas as terrorist groups, which is what they are. When you flood American streets with drugs, you are terrorizing America, and that is going to end. Mr. President, let me be clear. The cartels carrying out this assault against our citizens are armed, well-organized, and violent. They have financial means, technical sophistication, and extensive paramilitary capabilities. They are bringing death and destruction to Americans. Therefore, President Trump determined these cartels are non-state armed groups, designated them as terrorist organizations, and determined their actions constitute an armed attack against the United States. Friendly foreign nations have made significant efforts to combat these terrorist organizations and have suffered significant loss of life as a result. The United States has reached a critical point where we must use force in self-defense and defense of others. Based on the cumulative effect of these hostile acts against the citizens and interests of the United States and friendly foreign nations, President Trump has determined the United States is in a non-international armed conflict and has directed the Department of War to conduct operations against them pursuant to the law of armed conflict and consistent with Article 51 of the UN Charter. Although these strikes have been limited in scope U.S. forces remain postured to carry out military operations as necessary to prevent further deaths or injury to American citizens by eliminating the threat. Mr. President, let me stress the United States does not recognize Nicolas Maduro or his cronies as the government of Venezuela. Nicolas Maduro is a fugitive from American justice and the head of the vicious narco-terrorist cartel de los Salos. Moreover, it is the action and policies of the illegitimate Maduro regime that pose an extraordinary threat to both the region and the national security of the United States. We appreciate the countries in the Western Hemisphere that have heeded our call to designate Tren de Aragua and Cartel de los Salos as terrorist groups, recognizing the threat they pose to the entire region. To iterate, the United States will not waver in our action to protect Americans from narco-terrorists. And I thank you.
Беспрецедентному давлению и угрозе военного вторжения.
The Security Council met today at the request of Venezuela, a sovereign state that has been subjected to unprecedented pressure and the threat of military intervention for several months. The situation is becoming increasingly tense with each passing day. Just kilometers from the country's coast, large-scale U.S. military activity is unfolding, directly threatening regional and international peace and security. Our American colleagues will likely dispute this today, claiming they pose no threat to anyone and that it's all about combating drug trafficking. At least, that's the narrative being actively promoted in Washington. Therefore, we suggest reviewing and assessing the facts at our disposal and forming your own unbiased opinion on the seriousness of the situation. Since August of this year, Washington has begun concentrating large military forces in the southern Caribbean. 3 destroyers with anti-submarine patrol aircraft, battleships, and a nuclear submarine have been deployed to the coast of Venezuela. The total military contingent numbers over 4,000 personnel. Is this preparation for an invasion or merely a routine redeployment and military exercises? The latter would be plausible, were it not for the fact that we are dealing with an independent state, where regime change has been repeatedly and openly stated by U.S. officials as one of their policy goals. Therefore, Venezuela has every reason to believe that its northern neighbor is ready to move from threats to action, deploying its navy.
Mr. President, we come to this Security Council to lodge a complaint, one of the most serious complaints possible. We are here to alert this Council to a series of actions that threaten not only peace and security in our nation, but also of the entire Latin American and Caribbean region. Mr. President, for years, the government of the United States has been conducting a propaganda and disinformation campaign against our country. At present, it is undertaking an escalating deployment of military forces mere miles from Venezuelan coasts. The military escalation involves the offensive mobilization of more than 10,000 troops, combat aircraft, missile destroyers and cruisers, assault troops, assets used in special operations and in covert missions, and even a nuclear submarine. The belligerent action and rhetoric of the U.S. government objectively point to the fact that we are facing a situation in which it is rational to anticipate that in the very short term an armed attack is to be perpetrated against Venezuela. That's why we're here, because this Security Council has the necessary means to prevent further worsening of the situation. We are here to avert the commission of an international crime. The Charter of the United Nations provides all of us here in this chamber with the means needed not only to confirm the existence of a threat, but also to be able to preserve regional and international peace and security. Should this body possess the political will to fulfill its mandate, it can use these means. The world is watching you today. Let's not betray those of us who placed our trust in the Security Council, because we those of us who signed up to the UN Charter. President, the United States narrative has feet of clay. It bears no relation to reality. And indeed, since January this year, this government has sought to convince the world that Venezuelans right now, today, are carrying out an invasion on the territory of this country, that the presence of Venezuelans due to their nationality alone is contrary to U.S. security and that they are all terrorists. This is the criminalization of the entire Venezuelan people. Venezuelans are proud of being Venezuelans. We don't seek tutelage from any empire. With great sacrifice, we have forged a country which is not subordinated to anyone. We aspire to have friendly, cooperative relations with the entire world based on mutual respect. But we will not accept insults or threats from anyone. Venezuelans do not yield to blackmail. Those who confuse our readiness for dialogue with weakness are mistaken. In our more than 200 years of history, if anyone believes that they can crush us because we are a small country, they should look back to the past and see that Venezuela was the grave of an empire. The Charter of the United Nations and the doctrine of universal peace protects Venezuela and all countries around the world. As guaranteed by Article 51 of the Charter, if Venezuela is attacked, it will then exercise its legitimate right to self-defense. We respect the United States. We respect its people who desire peace. But we warn the world that if the United States were to attack Venezuela and its people, if the United States were to profane our territory, we have the sacred duty to defend what is ours, what we have inherited from our ancestors, and that we safeguard for our children and our grandchildren. Venezuela is ours. It is not the United States. We are sure that the world will understand that in the face of an attack, we will exercise with all of the strength and the love of our homeland our right to self-defense, and even if this struggle takes generations, we will prevail. Venezuela will continue to win peace, exercising its full sovereignty and guaranteeing the right to life. Thank you very much, President.